Hi everyone, it's Jerry. Here's another cool endgame study. This one by, I guess we can say, fan favorite, Frédéric Lazard. This was composed in 1912. It's a study that's not nearly as sophisticated as some of his others that I've shared with you in this playlist, but still one I'm confident you'll enjoy in this rook and pawn specific endgame. It's white to move, and just to be clear, the notation gives this away. White is headed in this direction. I encourage you to take this as a moment to challenge yourself a little bit, improve your calculation, spend some time, try to work this one out. It's white to move. What is the best continuation? Okay. The solution, well, before I share the solution, let me first note that white cannot win this. That's the first conclusion you need to come to. There's no fancy way to give mate. There's no fancy way to pick up the rook. In fact, before you even look at trying to pick up the rook, if that is something you were considering, the more pressing issue is what are you doing about this passed pawn that's a single step away from queening? White cannot win. So what's the trick here to draw this endgame? Here is what does not work. What does not work, move 1, rook c7. This is no good. Why? You needed to anticipate a resource that black has. Now this is the ideal placement for the rook, to position himself behind the passed pawn. But the issue with that is there is now rook h5. And after the king moves, rook c5. You could see this show up in many games, this little interference idea. In this case, we're seeing it with the rook. Maybe in some lines could be with a bishop or a knight. That intersection square c5, a square that the pawn is supporting. This will allow black to win. Rook takes rook, pawn takes. What are we doing here? Move the king, take the pawn, whatever. Black pushes through and goes on to win. So after rook here, do we come over here to give check and then play here? Well, that's not working either. Black goes on, still, pushes, is up a rook. Black will go on to win. So what's the trick? Well, the trick here is to first give this check. This makes all the difference in the world. Now, the black king has 3 options: h5, h4, f3. However, 2 of the 3, h4 and h5, would interfere with rook h5, that resource rook h5 into c5. Just to put it on, king h4. Now we would come over here. Now the pawn will be successfully hunted down, and the resulting position will be a draw. Okay. So therefore, the king must go to f3. Only at this point, only after we have forced the king to f3, do we play over to c7. How does this factor in? We're going to find out. Now when rook h5 is played, we go into d4. And now when the rook plays to c5, we can capture that pawn. Capture the rook. Rook takes rook, pawn takes rook, and now the key move, king d3. Are you seeing what's happening here? The king, now that he is on f3 instead of g4, he is taking some squares away from the white king. The pawn is controlling d4. The king, with its last move, is attacking c2, and it must push. Otherwise, king takes pawn, and it would be a draw. And now, well, if you do push and promote to the queen, that's stalemate. All squares taken away from the white king. No legal moves here. Same story if you promote to a rook. And let's consider the other 2 under promotions. A promotion to a knight will not work either because of king c4, and there's now not a good way for the knight to safely defend the pawn. d3 or b3, the knight is just captured. And Lastly, if you promote to a bishop, that will not work either because of, once more, king c4, bishop a3 to defend, trying to hang on to that mating material, but that could be forced off the board with now d4, pawn takes, king takes, draw by insufficient material. A clever one here, just 2 moves deep, but requires an understanding of, well, he needs to really understand the difference between the 2 king positions. Maybe some of you didn't realize that this was even a resource at all. You need to anticipate that. This is, many endgame studies, you think to yourself, well, I can never really apply that in one of my own games. This idea right here is super applicable. This happens quite often, these little interference tactics in an endgame, a rook and pawn endgame, or really just any type of endgame. As I was mentioning, the rook in this game was going to c5, but you could see any type of piece interfering on this this intersection square, c5. But giving a check first, forcing the king to f3, and only at this point coming over to c7, because with the king a little bit closer, he is helping to have this stalemate resource on board. So a neat little one, only 5 moves deep, but one I think, I hope at least, you enjoyed. Feel free to leave any feedback, as usual, in the comment section below, and I will catch you in the next one. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.